Age of Housos, a banteroll actual play. Chapter 2, The Oracular Tree, Part 1. The party began the hike back to High Peak after the wedding, though they noticed there are some boulders on the path where there were none before. Garrock knocks on the boulders, and it sounds strangely hollow, and suddenly a large claw comes cracking out of the rock, taking a swipe at the dwarf. Ross calls them mountain rock crabs, and the party winds up fighting the rock crabs to clear the way. Alec, eager to experiment with new meats, brought the legs of the rock crabs they killed back to cook with. When they arrived back at High Peak, Cecil gives Ross the iron ring to see if one of his sisters can identify it or figure out who it belonged to. Edgar also followed Ross to request a couple of kegs of brandy from his family brewery. Ross's sister Katros, a curious and self-taught inventor, informed them that the ring is not magical and the only interesting feature it has is a different ring was used as its core and was only coated in iron. After a day or so, Johnson and Bronvar invited the group to discuss their plans at the tavern after putting in a request with the Council of High Peak to build a guild hall. They explained that they know of a place with glowing green fungus that leads to a strange yellow stone with a creature set inside of it. This would then take them to the path that leads them to the oracular tree. The party agrees to join them and prepare to set out deeper into the mountains. Just a few hours outside the town, they pass through a valley with a strangely large sword hilt sticking out from the ground, and several other oddly large, half-buried objects. Shortly, they come across a pool of deep water, and while skirting around, a jar falls out of one of their packs and shatters on the rocky banks, the shard falling into the pool. Garrock tosses in a gold coin for good luck. However, after a moment or two passes, the party sees giant glass shards and a gold coin the size of a cartwheel falling out of the sky above them, and dive to take cover. Deciding not to mess with the pool any further, they continued on, and soon they came to a narrow ledge where a goat was blocking their path. Garrock, possessing an odd animosity for goats, charges it to get it out of the way of the party, getting quite far ahead of the group. The rest caught up to him at the entrance of a cave, seeing him eating glowing green moss and looking a little out of it. The cave itself was filled with floating spores. Since it was close to dusk, the party decided to make camp. Cecil decides to wild shape into a goat in order to startle Garrock as revenge for the pranks pulled on him during the wedding and startling the dwarf. In the morning, the party put on face masks to keep from breathing in the spores of the cave, fairly certain they had some mind-altering effects. They emerged on the other side near some river rapids and saw a gondola on rails that traverses the river. Halfway across, they see a hill giant bathing in the river, giving them quite the affronted look as they passed, but otherwise he did them no harm, simply requesting some privacy. On the other side, they followed a trail to another fungal cave, covered in the same moss. Garrock immediately takes a mouthful and begins to trip out. The party continued inside regardless and come to a deep shaft where they hear running water below. Garrock took a dive straight down. After some debate and stalling, the group all followed suit, seeing no other ways out than forwards. The sled and the barrels they brought with them smashed on impact with the water below, but thankfully no one was hurt from the long drop. Some rations were salvaged from the crates, and the rings of the barrels brought along. Garrock, still on a high, was carried through the caves on Grump's back. Eventually, the party comes to a wider cavern, and comes face to face with the yellow amber stone in the middle of the floor, the shadow of something big contained within, unmoving. All around the cavern is a coral-like fungus, colourful crystals growing on the walls, and a shallow pool of water. The amber began to crack when struck by Bronvar and Johnson, and the creature, trapped inside, finally burst free. It resembled an armoured shark, but quadrupedal, with wicked curved claws and a very wide fanged maw. It grabbed Johnson in its jaws, but dropped him when Bros shouted at him in the same manner he'd tell Grum to drop his favorite sock. The creature burrowed away in the ground as if swimming through water, leaving not even a trace that it had been there. The party didn't have long to explore the cavern, investigating some of the purplish-blue crystals and strange fungi, before the creature returned and attacked again, this time putting up more of a fight. Garrock, a little more sober now, threw a spiky ball into the creature's mouth, forcing it to give up again and flee. This time, it seemed to stick, allowing the group a little breathing room to continue their exploration further in.